and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. It is Monday night. We are back in action. Three of us back-to-back weeks making the schedule happen. I am your host, as always, Timuchin here in Chicago, and with us is the usual duo. Did that hat get brighter blue this week, or is that the same hat? It looks even brighter somehow.
It's brighter on Monday nights, baby, when we got primetime on.
Oh, wait, your boys are playing, aren't they?
Yeah.
So we will only have one eye of Bickler, I'm assuming, on the podcast, and that's going to have to be it. Gally is with us as well. Gally, what's happening?
I don't have to worry about anything. My team stunk up the joint on Thursday night football, so we don't have to worry about having to watch anything on Monday night. And while we're at it, my wife's team stunk up the joint on Sunday night football. So if Bickler's team hopefully doesn't do the same, but if they do, we will have just hit the freaking trifecta running right through all the nationally televised games.
My boys finally got a win yesterday, so
they played mothers, sisters, Marys, children of the poor.
You played the games on your schedule, which actually brings us to our conversation right here. Week 6, right? Is that where we're at? And we are top of the league. Similar to playing whoever that Gally was talking about, Bickler. How excited should we be? I mean, you still have to win these games. You know me, when I look at that, I only get irked because I see the Forest game. That was a very winnable game, and we would have a 4-point lead. But having said that, at the end of the day, we are still top of the league. How much credits should go into that?
I mean, all the credit to all the players and all the managers, right? I mean, like, when you look at this, it's like, I think, has it been perfect? Absolutely not. But like, if you would ask any of us this summer coming into this thing, like, how we'd feel if we were 6 weeks in and we were in the top 4, we'd all feel pretty good about that, right? If you said third, we'd feel better. If you said second, great. If we said first, I think we'd all would.
Is it just the manager effect for you though? Like compared to last year, because ultimately it's the same squad, or is it because we didn't add anything to the squad? Like last year was an unknown as well, but expectations going into this season compared to last season, was it about?
I think at the end of the day, if you told me we were going to be 6 matches in and conceded twice, I would have pulled a causey and my pants would be off. So you know what I mean? So I think that's what it boils down to. I think it's the way that it's been done. New manager is great. I think it's the way it's been done. I think more importantly, it's the way that those teams that we were supposed to be chasing look 6 weeks in.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I mean, while you're keeping your pants on, Gally, what do you think of the being top of the league ordeal, albeit playing teams that, while we should on paper be able to beat, we know, when we were talking about this morning as well, our struggle has always been losing points to those teams. So at the end of the day, even this weekend, getting a tough 3 points is still getting 3 points that goes to the tally.
Yeah, and I think that's why, regardless of the new manager, to Paul's point, if you told me we would only concede 2 goals over 6 matches, regardless of who we had played over those 6 matches, out of what I've seen for 2+ years, I would have never expected that. And that's even with Klopp being in charge and there not being any upheaval or change. I think the other thing that gets me excited is I can't remember a 6-match stretch where we didn't have a player come up either injured with a knock or a report that they might be missing a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I think for me, that has something that gives me even more faith than the amount of points on the table. It looks like we've made a conscious change to the way in which we play on the weekend, but also the way in which we train all week long, that I'm hoping will lead to there being this being a more sustainable run. And to your point, I will go here and say it. I don't believe if Jurgen Klopp were still the manager of this club, even if all these players were healthy, that we would be at this point right now with as many points as we have and playing as well defensively, because I think we still would have been going for the 3rd and 4th goal in multiple games that we won by 1 or 2. And I think we probably would have conceded a goal or 2 and gave up those points to lower opposition. So to me, the confidence doesn't come from who we beat. It's how we're playing and the change and the fact that the players seem to have bought into it so much faster than I ever gave them credit for being able to do.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that because I mean, in terms of like projecting what we've seen so far, and how we expect it to turn out as we keep going on weeks over here. I mean, Cersei says I think it's a new voice, new training, hands-on training from the head coach. And what I love about Slot is that he still credits Klopp and he doesn't let his ego get in the way of. And I think that's a big thing for Slot, and I think that's just like kind of like the guy he is. It's not all about him. He's very kind of like low key. He doesn't have like the ego to throw around. He's not like a character and charisma, kind of like doesn't have the same charisma like Klopp did. But at the same time, he's more like business like. He reminds me of like back in the retail days, the guy that comes from General Office Pickler that is just like pretty vanilla, not a lot of personality. It's all business, looks at the numbers and stuff like that, talks in generalities. Really nice guy, and then he leaves kind of a thing. And I think the best thing he's done, Bickler, is the fact that we don't talk as much Klopp anymore, except the guy in the Chicago group this week questioning why Slot doesn't wear Liverpool logo stuff. To be fair to the poor guy, he got hammered. I mean, it didn't. I think he was like, just wondering kind of thing. Everybody took that as like, is that your issue right now? I felt bad for him. Initially, I was like, what the hell, man? Seriously, that's what you're looking at? But the way he got pounded, I almost like felt bad for him. But is that like one of the biggest achievements he's done so far, that we stopped talking about Klopp? Or at least the media mostly did. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think winning helps that, right? And I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment. He's come in and he's like not only won, but he's won pretty convincingly across the board, right? And this just goes back to the fact that, like, I think when this team is up in games, it closes out games like a vice grip. And that's the big problem I had before, is like, this wasn't a side that knew how to bleed out a game at all before. And that was like the main thing, right? I do like that point, because I think we got used to 9 years of a rock star in Jurgen Klopp, right? Like, he came out, like the cameras were out, all the microphones were coming in for a soundbite. And like the funny thing about it is I think that Slot is like the vanilla dude who dresses completely like in normal business casual, very boring, getting into the very nice car that's not like outlandish and like, like I think he's just the kind of the under the radar guy. But like, I'd argue that he actually has better sound bites than Jurgen Klopp. Like because like he'll actually give you some shit where like, I think Jurgen had this big smile and this gregarious like personality, and everybody gravitated toward that. And then he just fed you 15 minutes of absolute bullshit. Like, so like, I think like in a weird way, even though he's under the radar, it's like the media hasn't gotten onto it yet. And I don't know if they ever will. Maybe they will there'll be some soundbite that probably gets traction at some point. But that's why we're not talking about it. And it is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, because he does throw people under the bus. I feel like he is more honest in his answers, even though they're not as exciting, maybe. He's a lot more honest in his answers. Klopp would crack a joke and say something outlandish, or, pretend he doesn't know English or whatever. But he still would be talking in generalities and like kind of like protect the squad and stuff like that and move on. I mean, he's been just honest, which is like really nice to see. But having said that, now when we look at how we are winning, Gally, is it mainly because the games look a lot more under control? Because if you look at the scores, I mean, I'll throw this up on the screen right here. If you're following us like live visually, but if you're on the podcast, I'll read it out to you. The big chances are only 3-1 actually this last game, even though aside from like a goofy goal that we gave up, which we'll talk to and make like a nice little pie over here. But, the 3-1, it felt a lot more comfortable, actually. Is that because of the control? Because ultimately, we're still not creating a lot of chances. Is that a concern?
Will it be a concern when we play better competition, go deeper into the Champions League? I think it will be, because I think those teams will do a better job of taking the 2 or 3 chances. They may take one of the 3 chances we give them. If you play Real Madrid and you give them 3 big chances, they may take one. So you may need more than 3, so you get your 2, right? Like, I think that's where my mind is going. Why I don't think it's an issue is I think this is his tactics. He didn't create a ton of big chances at Feyenoord. They didn't have a huge goal differential there. They were very resolute defensively. They were well organized. I just think this guy sees the game a lot like Pep does. And I think at times we talk about like all the big chances City has. When you look at the stats, sometimes City will have 4 big chances in a game. They just score 3 of them because they fall to Holland.
Yeah.
But they only have 4 big chances, but they have 80% possession.
And I think it's that control again. So it looks like they make it look easy almost.
They make it look easy and they almost lull you into false securities. And I don't want to make this. It took me exactly 11 minutes, less than 11 minutes to bash Szoboszlai on this podcast. I don't want to make this about Szoboszlai not offering anything in the 10 role, but I think when your creative midfielder isn't creating for anyone on the pitch and all we talk about is his work rate, defensive work, and tracking back, I think that is why the front three has looked a little bit more or less disconnected. And I think that solving that problem, whether it's Jones eventually, Harvey eventually, Chiesa, Jota, or even Szoboszlai playing like a number 10.
Yeah.
I think if you had someone pulling some strings and creating some more space and making some more opportunities, the way De Bruyne does when City's in possession for hours at a time, I think it could go a long way in changing some of those big chances getting created. I also think that we're still playing a little bit in second gear because we're still figuring this out as much as I hope by November, December, this starts to hit into a little bit of a higher gear where it's a little faster on the ball, quicker passes, therefore allowing this possession to lead to more opportunities. That makes sense.
And that's the thing. At the same time, Bickler, when you look at chances created and stuff like that, and we're talking about, starting to go against tougher opposition teams that are in the top 10 and all that kind of stuff, that in some ways suits us better because we would be able to create more chances against a team that's probably playing a bit more open than a guy who's like a team that's kind of like coming to defend more than anything else, or a team that's trying to play soccer and like kind of building from the back where our press comes into play and stuff like that. But do you think at the same time we will probably give more chances? Does that ratio favor us, you think, in terms of how much, like, will we create more than we give up more in terms of like situations?
I mean, you can certainly make the argument for that. I think that really depends on who the team is that you're playing personally. I think my main thing here, in the big question that I've always had about slot in the system, right? I mean, we make the City comparison, right? Like, so this system is not as dynamic, it's not as violent, it's not as chaotic, it's a lot more pragmatic in approach. My thing about this is with City, and what makes City great is when City needs to basically find another gear or put a team under their thumb, they can do that in a way that manipulates a match into creating chances for them. Like, sometimes it's press related. A lot of times it's personnel and tactic related. And my big question with Slot is, what does the system look like when you're behind and you need a goal? We only saw it once, and we didn't see an answer versus Forest. Mainly because we were looking like we were rotating because we had a match in like 72 hours, right? So, like, my big question is, what does this system look like when he needs to manipulate chances into a match like City does? Like, and I think that is the great big one that's going to
great question.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we don't know until we kind of come into it, because that was kind of like a dilemma, kind of a game. You're right. And I think, I don't know, we said in the beginning, right, this would be, you would think with a new coach and stuff like that, there would be a lot more growing pains. It doesn't seem so far, mainly because it's a bit safer as opposed to a bit more aggressive. If you're doing what Spurs does and do a high line, and that's your new set of way of playing, kind of like what we did when Klopp came over, right? It's a lot more riskier. It might blow up in your face a lot more. Whereas if your new system is playing it a bit more safe, it's a lot harder for that to like kind of like blow up because, it's based on control and stuff like that. I mean, even in terms of like the situations that we've like, chances we've given up, most of them have been like set pieces, Gally, or it's been like the second phase of the set piece when the ball comes, like a poor clearance or something like that. Let's come to the goal this weekend. Even that one is kind of like a gift on our part over there. We talked about it this morning. I'm sure you guys talked about it in the post-match, obviously, as well. Where does the blame go?
So
Make me a
I heard you
pie.
this morning. Yeah, you were making the pies for the man who doesn't like pies. He's not a baker, but he does a whole shit ton of them virtually. Um, so I think I'm a little bit harsh. I'm kind of with Matoush on this. I heard him this morning. I think everybody wants to make it like a 70, 80, 20 blame pie. I put a little bit of it on Virgil actually too, because I think part of it is how he tracks back and the way he's running with Kanate. But the majority of it has to be on Kanate, because all Kanate has to do 3 different times, especially even at the last second when he realizes, oh, bleep, Alley's not coming out,
Yeah.
is sweep his damn leg and kick the ball out of bounds for a corner. It's all he has to do, and he freezes. So for that, I'm giving him the majority of the blame pie. I think I'd probably give like 60-30-10 maybe, or 65-25-5, something like that. I do think you
Who's
need.
gonna eat a slice that's only 5%? For God's sake, you're just wasting pie, bro.
You met me. You saw exactly what I'm built like. I eat the 5%, and 2.5 of it ends up in the trash. But I do think that Allie has to take some, and I love what Matoush said. Not for not coming out and getting the ball, but because Kanate is clearly Kanate is clearly defending as if he is trying to block off the player from allowing the keeper to come collect the ball. And there's zero communication from Allie to say, I'm not coming, I am coming, clear that ball. And I do think right at that moment is when Kanate goes, oh, bleep. And instead of just sweeping the foot, the old Cobra Kai sweep the leg and just take everybody out except for, the offensive player. Instead of doing it, he freezes. And in turn, the second phase happens, and then the double connection and the ball bouncing off Virgil and it goes in. Kanate is to blame because he can stop it from happening. But very often when Allison is put in these weird talk to your defenders, he always seems to not talk until after the ball ends up in the back of the net, and then he has all kinds of communication for everybody on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I do think that more of it is on Allison than is getting put on him. And I think a lot of these in miscommunications, we saw one last year with Virgil, and Virgil was pissed, you could tell, because Allison basically left him out to dry.
Yes.
And I think Allison's one of those keepers who gets a little caught up when he doesn't have a lot to do. And he didn't have a lot to do yesterday, and the first chance he had to do something, he kind of did nothing.
Yeah, I mean, so personally, I think Alisson should have. I almost felt like nothing was communicated, Bickler. It almost seemed like sometimes you kind of expect, okay, he'll be here. Like you turn around and then you expect the goalie to come out and get it. He didn't come out and get it. And I agree. And that's why I put more of the blame on Kanate. Yes, your goalie should come out. But, man, you play it safe. Even if you don't hear the goalie afterwards, how many times do you kick out and be like, you know what? I didn't hear you, and I'm not going to roll the dice over here. We'll just defend the corner, live to see another day kind of a deal. But it is kind of – that has happened before in terms of, the communication. Otherwise, really, that was yet another situation that was really under control. It was ushered really well, and chance kind of cleared.
Yeah, for me, if I'm playing the blame playing game, I'm looking at 65-35 here for Kanate, just because I think at some point common sense has got to prevail if you don't know, right? Like if you're in the Bermuda Triangle of defending, you do what you default to, which should be to clean it into a safe area, right? But I do think we do have one major thing where this is I would love. I know that Allison's not an outspoken guy, right? But he's a goalkeeper. I'd like for him for once just to pretend it's Jordan Henderson and talk nonstop, because that's what he needs to be doing.
Yeah.
In general,
you really hear him scream, actually, right? You see a lot of goalies.
And as one of the world's best goalkeepers for the last 4 or 5 years, I do think this is a major area of his game that's a critical flaw for him. Is he does not command a box. He doesn't, and he really it's one of those things where you got to have that, especially if you have young defenders in there. I know Konate's not young anymore, but Kwanzaa sure is. And that's going to you have to be loud in that spot when you can see that one of your defenders is in an area where he doesn't know what to do. And I just think he didn't help Konate out there. And then Konate obviously didn't help himself.
To be fair, there was a miscommunication. You can kind of clearly see afterwards that's, Ali is like, you're right. I probably should have come out. But
And they
like
did.
say,
I
if you
thought they
don't come
did a
out
good
though,
job.
you got to clear that freaking ball. You just can't like wait to see what's gonna happen. Go ahead, Gal.
I was gonna say I did see that, and I thought that was great. Like they didn't yell at each other, they didn't get down, and Konate. I thought in some ways Konate got better after the mistake. He was a little shaky for like the next 10 minutes, but he has a couple. He was a little shaky, and I even made the comment because I've always been saying that he defends like a defender who needs confidence, almost like a striker. And when he makes a mistake, it's like, oh no, it can get. And I was like, oh Christ, he's going to make a second mistake here, and he almost did.
Yes.
But then I felt like the last 25 minutes of the game, I feel like he was the best player on the pitch, and he made those two crucial clearances late. He had that one header in the box, and then he's the one who saved the Mo deciding to kick it back into his own box instead of just kicking it out of bounds. Here I am, like in classic Galley fashion. He sees Mo track all the way back, make a great defensive play, and I'm like, that's Mo defending in the box. And then he turns around and tries to play a back pass to a center back. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop defending. But I will say
Go back.
One thing about Ali, you make a great point though, Tmuchin, and Paul said it too. That was the reason. I think it was like 2 Brazilian coaches ago, Tite or whatever, had said why Ederson was unequivocally the number 1 was because Alisson doesn't talk to the defenders. And if you're there for just an international window, you need your goalkeeper to run the show because there isn't a Virgil van Dijk helping you and an Andy Robertson on one side and you have to do the job. And one thing you can see, whether you like him or not, Ederson never shuts up. Ederson is yapping at people every second of every day. So it kind of makes sense though. Like it probably is his only weakness. He's probably the best keeper in the world. And the one little weakness he has is maybe he's not strong enough on corners. Every once in a while, he lets players bully him off the line, I think sometimes. But really, it's his communication and his commanding of the box. If there were anything I would say, hey, you could improve on, but he's pretty goddamn
that
good.
Could partially come from playing with Van Dijk as well. So you're running the show. Okay, cool. I'm going to be right here, kind of an ordeal. Whereas, as a defender, it's always great to have, because that guy has even a wider vision than you do because he's seeing everything. So it's always like greater to. Brian says Scalar doesn't. I haven't seen enough of him to say that, to be honest with you. I just know that you do not, as many as freaking microphones are all over the freaking pitch over here, you rarely hear like Ali come out or say something or scream or yell out or anything like that. But I think that could partially be because of playing with a guy like Van Dijk who is running the show over there. And like you said, like Robertson and stuff, overall a back 4 that's been together for quite some time now, good or bads, but they've been together for quite some time. That's why Konate, like you said, afterwards, he was probably, and he wanted the man of the match. Obviously, Gravenberg got it at the end. One guy who got nowhere near man of the match is Galley's favorite, Szoboszlai Bigler. And when he was coming out, he looked like a guy who knew that, like, he didn't do well. Is it just a confidence thing, or is it more of a, this just doesn't fit him? It feels like it should fit him like a glove, but we're not seeing that. Is it just time? Is it confidence, or we're wrong? It just doesn't fit him.
Yeah, I don't, I wish I knew more about the intricacies of what he's being asked to do, to be quite honest with you, because I think the answer's there.
That's fair,
I think, like, is it confidence related? I'm sure that's part of it. I really just think that if you look at it like from a situational standpoint, he appears to be a tactical square peg in a round hole. And like, I just think I would love to, like what is he as a player? Like, I think we got sold the dream that he was this like rising box to box throwback player. And I think what messed with me anyway is that we saw that for 3 games, right? We saw like elite, like the spirit of Stevie G back in another kid's body for 3 matches. And I think we all kind of got high on that. And I think at the end of the day, like when I look back at what he's done from his career standpoint, he's really excelled in almost like uniformly one-dimensional attacking roles, right? So like it's the irony of it is the things that we're crediting for him for right now are all the things that aren't that. Like it's his off the ball work, it's his like positional awareness, it's his ability to go up and disrupt play, the track back, all the things that he's never been known for. Yeah. Which makes me really think that we're not playing to his strengths in general, which either means he's got to move in the formation or he's got to move teams. And I don't know what the answer is.
Or is it that, Gally, that he is so focused on things that I think that's a good point that Bickler makes, that he's doing a lot of things that you would expect him not to do well and really well. Is that mainly because he's so worried about doing those things right that is not in his nature, that everything else kind of falls a little bit more apart? Or like it's almost like, I don't know, I always bring up this analogy like in basketball or whatever. If the guy's a scorer, you really go ahead and make him defend because then he's not as an effective scorer coming the other way, right? So he's like doing so much defensive work where then when he's with the ball, it's not the regular Szoboszlai you have, but it's kind of like the 60%, 70% version of it.
I mean, I don't disagree with that idea. My only argument would be like, I know he's working hard. And he's tracking back and he's running. And we can see the running. You can see the stats. You can see him running on the pitch. But is he doing that much defensive work right now in a number 10 role with two other midfielders behind him that it's stopping him from being able to connect a good pass or make a through ball for Mo or create anything? Like, for me, I know those 3 games were really good. But I'm almost wondering now, were we all so convinced they were so great because we just wanted to see someone in that number 8 jersey look like a star midfielder because we witnessed...
You don't like Keita? What's up with that?
Well, because we witnessed Keita let us down for 4 consecutive years. Yeah. And then we got it for a month, and we were like, we got this. Here's the thing. He has been worse for Hungary over the last 18 months than he has for Liverpool. So, people are going to kill me.
I'm not
really hope Megan.
You got to remember that pass that he hit from the halfway line, though. That inside, we didn't we're not we're not making up phantom performances. Those 3 or 4 matches were incredible.
Yeah,
but there are a litany of great professional athletes who get to 22, 23 and are supposed to kick on to the next level and live off 4 or 5 worldy goals they scored for their country, or 2 or 3 great performances they put in at Salzburg and Leipzig that create the buzz that get them a $70 million. Let me ask you this right now. Would anyone pay in the world, do you think anyone's paying $70 million for him?
No.
I don't. And that's scary.
Did before those performances, you're saying that launch careers. So clearly,
and when he started like that, we said, "Hey, even that is a good deal for what
it's going to be a surprise." But he had those performances. There's a reason Megan was in our Discord chat telling us about this player for years. People were talking him up as this big star that was going to Barcelona, that was going here. I'm not saying he's a bum. I'm not saying he's a bust. I do think, though, at some point, we're going on over 12 months of mediocre play. That normally wouldn't be something people would be trying to make excuses about hard work rate and effort.
But okay, that's a good point, and that's my question then, Bickler. We're watching the game, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! You telling me Jones can't do the defensive work that he does, and maybe give you a bit more offensively? If Slot is insisting on him, is he just trying to play out of his funk, or it goes back to what you're saying? He's getting what he wants out of Szoboszlai. Otherwise, why keep him over there 90 minutes game after game?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. And I don't think, I do think that there's other players that can step in and do a better job at what's being asked of him in that position. And I will say, I don't buy into the idea that we bought a player that's not there. I think he's there. What is concerning to me is what Gally brings up is the fact that, this isn't Gakpo where he's going off on international break and doing well. That's the concerning thing, is that this appears to be maybe not tactically related, which is, I think, my hope And so, like, I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing we've got to really rectify. Like, where did it go? Where did it go off the rails so badly for this player that, like, he not only lost himself at the club level, but he lost himself at the international level where everything flows through him.
And that's why it feels like it's like built up frustration and, you know, like not being able to exactly do what he wants when he's coming off the pitch. I'm like, I know he's not pissed off in terms of coming out because he knows probably why, but it looked like a more of a guy, Gally, that was mad at himself for underperforming again, because I'm sure he knows that he's a lot better player. He's been there and done that. And, you know, like they're saying in the comments, I mean, he's only 23. So, and we've seen what he can be. It's not like he just suddenly forgot how to play. So it has to be more of a form. And I don't understand the Hungarian Emre Can thing. First of all, I never understand the Emre Can hate.
I don't know why we always shit on Emre Can.
I have no idea. I thought Emre was great for this club. I don't understand the Emre hate, to be honest. But
other than the fact he asked to leave the club because he wanted to win things, and then we went and won the Champions League the next year. So it's more like this to him. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, he played out his contract. He was a really good soldier. He played as hard as he could every minute.
He went and got his money. More power to him. Whatever.
Correct. I never understood the Emre Can hate myself either. I'll say this about Szoboszlai. I don't know if it's about the age thing. Where I get frustrated, though, is like, so Jones is 23, 24 years old, and he's like old because he's been around for 6-7 years, and he should be so much better by now. Like, he's 23 years old. He's been playing top-level European, starting at a European club that is in the Europa or Champions League since he was 17 years old. He's not some young kid. He was at Leipzig. He made the move from Salzburg. He's played for Hungary since he was 17. He's been captain since he was 19. So it's not like he is some, like, 15-year-old. It's not Tyler Morton, and we gave him a shot. He had 3 great games, and then he fell off the boil. I don't understand.
Why don't you think it's form and not quality or skill set? Because we've seen the skill set and quality.
I think we've seen it. I don't think we've ever seen it consistently enough at Liverpool to know it's going to work at Liverpool. So I think when people question it, I think it's legitimate questions, because we've never played a system, nor are we going to play a system like they did at Salzburg or Leipzig. That's not the system we're playing here, and it wasn't with Klopp. He felt like the wrong fit for Klopp, and we all said that halfway through last season. And we thought getting him into the 10 role under Slot and this new style would unlock him and make him so much more comfortable. And to me, I think it's actually made him look marginally less effective. And maybe that's, to your point, he's trying too hard to do all the little things that he's being asked to do. But Gravenberch was asked to do a hell of a lot less in this system than he was in the old system. And he is excelling at it because it fits him. And my fear is this just doesn't fit Dom.
Yeah, I mean, that could be fair, because that's the thing. I mean, you know, if we listened to everybody talking about Gravenberch last year, we wouldn't have him this year, right, in terms of performance, but it's like a better
Except for
fit.
John.
I still hold hope for Szoboszlai. As frustrating as it is to watch him at times, I still hold hope, because I feel like Bickler, we've seen the potential. I see of it as more form and confidence than anything else. And I think, you know, when you mention Jones, I think that's a good example in terms of comparing it to, because Jones is kind of like that too. It's really, really real hot or real cold. And I don't know if that's like, again, like the age, confidence, or a fit, or just pure form. I mean, the form is going to go up and down, but class is permanent, as they say, Bickler.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like we said, this was going to be one of the big things. Like the 2 big things I think that, like, we were talking about was, like, is he going to be able to play Nunez and Gakpo together and figure that out? And is he going to be able to figure out Szoboszlai's role? You know what I mean? And what that looks like. And I'm fine with any of that as long as nobody pulls a Rich Kramer and tries to tell me that Chiesa is the second coming of Shaqiri. I think we're fine.
No, really?
Yeah. Well, listen.
In a good way or in a bad way?
In a bad way. He says that he thinks Chiesa is just going to be a rotational piece like Shaqiri. And I think we should call him
is the replacement for a really big star at the club that no one wants to talk
That's
about.
what I think.
That's a comment for a different pod.
We need to get Kramer on the line in Louisiana and talk some sense into him because he's a good guy. He saw Weezer for like the 100th time this week, so I really like him. And I don't.
Hey, Kramer will be back actually on the.
I don't want to end our friendship over this take, but it's like it's really draining on me this
No,
week.
Kramer actually will be in action on American Scouts over here with Cersei and Gordo as they record their like Patreon content for like the mental health and sports.
I'm phoning in doing it.
That should be coming up. Maybe they can bring you on over there so you can talk about Shaqiri.
Talk about how that take is taking a toll on my mental health.
Okay, let's go. Here's another topic I wanted to talk to you guys about. The front three. I know Nunez was ill, but ultimately the starting front three is, and I know, like we're not, I know Gally, you have been very critical of like most form and stuff, and rightfully so in terms of like average performances. But ultimately, is this our starting ideal front line with Diaz, Jota, and Mo?
I don't think so. I think that it is still 100% up in the air between Jota and Nunez, and I think the manager kind of told you that with the fact that he was planning to start Nunez against Forest before he had a little bit of an injury. He got the start in the League Cup game. He got the start in the San Siro. He got the start in the League Cup game. I think he might have been in the frame to play again. I think that Jota and Nunez will literally rotate depending on the team in which we're playing and which player offers more from the start and which one offers more from the end. I honestly believe that in Arne Slot's heart, he believes having Darwin Nunez as his number one striker is what's best for the club, both in the immediate and the future. But he's going to make him earn it, and he's going to get him there. And Kazi said it all summer, don't play him for 4 or 5 matches. And I think it ended up being the smartest thing in the world because it made Nunez work extra hard. And, Slot is extremely honest, as we all talk about in the pressers. I have literally never heard him say 3 words about Diego Jota. Not once. I've heard him wax poetic about Nunez. I've heard him talk about his effort, his work rate, his pressing, everything he does in training. I think he knows what Jota is. And I think right now, Jota gave him the most consistent player to play in the middle of the pitch and pull it all together, score some goals. I think in the long run, he will groom Darwin Nunez to be his true number 9. And I think that's his goal, and I think that's what he'll end up doing the same way he did with the Jimenez kid at Feyenoord, who he didn't play for the whole first quarter of last season until he kind of worked his way into the system. So I think that's what he's doing with Nunez. I could be totally wrong.
I mean, I know what you mean with him talking about Jota, but to be fair, when you're constantly being asked about Nunez, he could redirect and talk about Jota a little bit. But yeah, I have not seen him throw a lot down Jota's way. I kind of like what Jota brings off the ball in the pressing and obviously carrying the ball and stuff like that. And Diaz seems like he's set on the left-hand side. There is a thing. As I was watching the game, and I want to ask you about Gakpo and Nunez at the same time, Bickler. There's a time in the 79th, 80th minute, somewhere around there. Somebody plays a long ball from the back, and Gakpo does not chase it. He stops. So the guy constantly can easily control the run if it went for a throw-in or whatever it was. But, we gave the ball away. Same thing happens 3 minutes later, and Jota tracks it all the way down and forces a throw-in our way because defender sees Jota coming full speed, so he can't control it properly and stuff like that. I guess my concern with Gakpo seems like the closest guy, right? When we see him in the international games and stuff like that, in terms of being able to work his way to the starting 11. I would never going to get that from Gakpo. Is that just not the type of player he is? Because even when he's coming off the bench, if you're not doing that, and we gave him a lot of shit last year, right? For not defending and stuff like that. It's that. That's an effort play that I feel like as a sub, you have to do. As a starter, you got to do to keep your spot. But as a sub, you got to show that effort. And I find that disappointing when my winger kind of stops. Yeah, it's a bad pass, but if you force the issue,
do you think it's a lack of effort or do you think it's a lack of confidence? Because part of me wonders if Gakpo thinks he doesn't have the top end pace to get there.
But Jota doesn't either, and he didn't get there. It's just a matter of, as a defender, if you have somebody barging down on me full speed, it's not as easy to control the ball and turn around and stuff like that. It's a lot more likely that you're going to screw up, or you're going to be like, you know what, I'm not fucking with this. I'm taking a throw in kind of a deal.
Listen, dude, it's just a question, right?
What pissed me off, Bickler?
Don't insult a defender. He told you how he
I
thinks.
don't have to defend, damn it.
Somebody's used to hosting and not like Bickler not
Somebody
asking.
asked Canate.
Like,
You're here to answer questions, Bickler. Don't be asking.
yeah, okay, sorry, I'll get back in my lane. Like,
Answer questions.
yeah, no, I get it. I think it is frustrating. I think that is the one thing that, like, you know, we talk about with Gakpo is like when he's not on it, right? It's really visually apparent that he's not on it, right? And like we're like, well, sometimes like we get that with Van Dijk too, where it just looks very relaxed or very like Dutch, right? So like, what does that translate when the manager's Dutch? Are they speaking the same language there? Or like, does that like
smoking a cigar?
Yeah. Like is Arne Slotly like, look, dude, I don't want to tell you this because we're Dutch, but you got to put in some effort there. Like feels weird me saying that and all, but like, I don't know what that looks like, but I don't disagree. I do think one of the main differences between Diaz and Gakpo that we have to sort of reconcile is like when they're on that wing, right? I think that Gakpo is very good at driving forward, but I think that he sort of his tendency and what he's good at is playing with his back to goal in a way that Diaz can't or is not good at.
And that's why, you know, when I asked you the question in terms of the front three, if anything, in my mind, I mean, we don't know Nunez, right, based on form and what he does, and he's going to get more and more opportunities with midweek games, Gally. So he might be able to kind of carve himself a spot. But based on what you see him do midweek and in international games when he's away, one assumes Gakpo would be the one who would force the manager to make some tough decisions. When I see something like that in the 80th minute, and then you came in as a sub, and I'm like, you just making life easy.
Yeah, well, I think the other part is I think Gakpo is competing against the player who's in the best form of any of the attackers. And Diaz.
So he's like thrown in the towel. Like,
well, I mean, I know, but I think that's like, and he did
fair.
it to himself. He did it to himself too, by the way, because he could have come in and said, "I love playing through the middle." He's the one who goes out there and is like, the manager asked me how I feel, and I told him I'm a left winger, and that's where I want to be, and I don't like playing centrally, and I'm not comfortable. You basically told everyone, I don't want to be a center forward at this club. I still think there is a world where we see some Nunez and Jota playing together through the middle like we did against West Ham in the League Cup, where Jota plays off the striker almost in the 10 role. To your point, he works so damn hard, and you still have Nunez out there, and you have the goal-scoring capabilities. Like, I think there's going to be some of that. I think he might be one of the answers for certain types of matches for giving Szoboszlai the rest if the manager doesn't have the faith we have in Jones until, say, Harvey is back or they buy another player. You know, personally, I know you hate to hear this. I thought Endo looked really good in his last couple of cameo performances. I know you don't like hearing it. He was good against West Ham. He was good against Milan when he got minutes in the second half. I thought he was pretty good the other day when he came on. You know, maybe someday there's a world where I will agree with you. I don't think moving McAllister forward actually helps because the more I watch, McAllister is the type of deep midfielder that Schlott wants, creating the passes, breaking down lines. And as long as Gravenberch can do what he's doing next to him, I'm not moving McAllister forward for a couple cheeky passes that he can pull off in the final third. Because McAllister's number one trait that he doesn't get enough credit for is he actually breaks up and tackles really, really well and breaks up counters. He gets in tough spots, even in his small, diminutive frame. So for me, I actually think the balance here is all about finding Szoboszlai to find himself or figuring out how to get 4 attackers on the pitch and not losing the defensive work. And maybe to your point, that's having a guy like Jota in that role.
I mean, for the record over here, and that clip, thank you, John, by the way, is still going around, that reel on Facebook. People are commenting on something that went out like 19 weeks ago and giving me shit for it, talking about like Endo. And for the record, once again, it's not that I don't like Endo. But when you say Mac is the kind of guy that is needed there,
no,
and then you're like, Endo is not bad. You're like, you're going to be shitting me. They're like night and day. That's why I feel like
the internet forever, baby.
He's not a fit.
My point is that McAllister definitely, his best position in this setup is right where the bleep he is right now. And it is just as evident by the improvement of Gravenberch in his position in the current setup. Because I think a lot of what Gravy is doing is because of the work McAllister does behind him and protecting him when he goes forward. As long as we don't have to talk about Trent in midfield, everybody's happy.
Yeah, Brian, back the hell off. And all those Ando lovers out there, you guys come back. I think, like I say, when you need to kind of like control, win a bit more balls, and want some beef in midfield, I think he's like a great guy to have in the rotation, but just not, like I say, the type of player in that sense. I mean, his turning around speed is so slow with the ball that's not the guy that you want building play over there. But I know Bickler is a huge fan, so I'm not even going to go there. But speaking of Endo, we might see, like, let's look at midweek over here. Are you expecting a West Ham like rotation or like a more of like a Milan type rotation in this game, Bickler?
Oh, these good old rotation questions. Let's see.
Which, because this is obviously Wednesday, next game being Saturday, crack of dawn.
7:30 a.m. though, so it's a quick turnaround to Wednesday to Saturday.
Oh, gross. I don't. I think you're going to see. All right. So essentially, he's going to rotate heavily in one of these spots. So I've got a 50-50 shot. I'll probably pick the wrong one. I'm going to say that he rotates midweek for the Champions League side, and then he goes full strength. I think that as much as the Champions League obviously is a massive competition, I think when you're on top of the domestic league in your first year there, and you have a real chance to put the pedal down and put some pressure on Arsenal and City, I just think he's probably going to stock on that Saturday and try to come in and get a win with his first 11 there. So I think most of the rotation is going to come midweek.
And does the fixture make a difference in that galley? Not to mention you came away with 3 points from San Siro with some rotation. I mean, I almost expect about the same amount of rotation, 4 to 5 players, not like a 9 to 10 players like a West Ham and then have those guys on the side. So if things are not going well, you can still put them in, but have them fresh. I know Palace is not good, but Palace away is always a bitch of a game.
Yeah, and they're not good, but their underlying numbers throughout the season have been pretty good, actually. Like, they're creating chances. They're just not finishing them yet. And I think if you make a mistake against Palace and they have a player like Mateta or Eze, I think you can be punished by them. I think you'll see 4 or 5 changes, maybe 6 tops. I think if we had drawn at the San Siro, right, and we were literally chasing a result in our first home match, different story. Yeah. This is one of our winnable matches. Bologna has not started the season well, like most Champions League, most teams that qualify for Champions League 5 years before they're supposed to qualify for Champions. They wake up that next season and like, oh shit, we got to play all these extra games against these really good teams and compete in Italy. So I think that because of that, you can probably see a little bit more rotation in this match. My guys, if Nunez is fit, I think he'll start. Yeah. I think Gakpo will absolutely start on the left. I think Jones should start in the 10. I don't know if he will, but I think Jones should start in that position. That does mean that McAllister and Grav probably have to play, which is a lot of minutes all in all. Keep going. So if that's the case, I really hope he gives McAllister a break against Palace, because we all know when McAllister goes away, he literally goes away on international duty and basically works harder than anyone but Andy Robertson, you know? And if it were me, I'd sit Robertson the next 2 games just to try to convince Scotland to leave him in Liverpool for the international break, which we all know they won't.
Yeah, they will. That's why I would like milk the hell out of the work out of them, because you know they're going to
Gomez at left back, and I think that was telling. Arne Slot had a chance to kill off a game, had 1 sub left in a 1-goal game, and didn't send on his deputy left back. He sent on Joe Gomez to see out the Wolves match.
And what's more telling is I think we all said thank you.
No, but I think
You know what I mean?
I think it's telling because to your point, I think the manager has kind of separated himself. Like you guys asked, what would they do when they're chasing a goal? Maybe when they're chasing a goal, they may bring Simicast in, try to create things and be attacking. I think Gomez is going to solidify himself as the fourth center back and the backup left back. Like I think Simicast's days are basically numbered here at the club, and I don't think anyone on this podcast or this channel or probably Liverpool supporters have an issue with that, except for Greek people. And
Yeah,
even they.
probably not, right? I mean, that's the thing. I just don't see. I mean, when I saw that substitution, I was like, "Thank you," because I was afraid it would be Costas coming in, and that's probably like the wrong person to put in that situation when you're trying to defend the lead at that point, because his positional awareness or positional discipline, because he's more of a wing back pickler. But Chiesa, let's talk about that real quick, or as you like to call him, Shaqiri. Is this future more of a 10 or more of a right wing? If you have to guess now.
Oh, I think it's got to be right wing would be my guess. I mean, you know, I think when Rich and I were going back and forth between the difference between Chiesa and Shaqiri is like Shaqiri was bought when Mo was entering his prime, and Chiesa was bought when we're wondering if Mo's going to renew a contract or not. Right? Like I think that's the obvious move there. And the fact that Chiesa's the age he is suggests that he's got at least 4 or 5 prime years left that he can run in that spot. I don't mind him in the 10. I thought he actually looks really good in the 10 when he was in. So I definitely think that could be an option. But I think long term, I think he was purchased to be a wide attacking player, which is what he's been his entire career. Interesting enough, Juventus played him a lot as an off the shoulder striker, right? So there's another option if you were playing something and you want an off the shoulder with Nunez, I think he works there too.
And that's when I saw him play that role, Gally, that was like the one thing I thought of is because he does have the work rates and the defensive hustle. And probably, you know, when we were talking about Szoboszlai earlier and confidence and stuff like that, that can't help, right? You see Chiesa trotted out there in your position and you were like, holy cow, this guy to take it. I was worried about Harvey. He was injured. You're like, wait, where did this guy come from? And then, you know, he can just come in and take that spot away from you if he gets a spell of like 2-3 good games and gets used to the role.
Yeah, I think what has saved Szoboszlai so far this year is that Harvey got hurt.
Yep.
And Chiesa wasn't ready for max minutes when there was times to give him a start or two in that position. Because in the cameo performances he's had better moments in his 20-30 minutes of playing in the 10 so far in 4 sub appearances than Szoboszlai has had over the entire 7 starts out of 8 matches. Like, we're not talking about a small little sample size and the 30 matches to end last season that he played consecutively when all we were begging was to give him a day off. And I think what he needs more than anything is I do think he needs 2 or 3 matches to start the match from the bench and watch other players doing the job, think about it, maybe come on and be an impact sub and actually make a positive impact. I believe he has been, like, statistically, and I know these stats are, you know, other people's statistical ratings. I'm pretty sure, like, both FOTMob and, like, the Anfield Wrap and the Liverpool Echo have basically had him as the lowest rated player in all but 1 match this season. And I think that starts to weigh on a player because we act like they don't read the paper or listen. They do. They listen, they hear, and I just don't. I think he's also a guy.
He's young, man. He's 23.
Well, but you say that, but then you had the comment today. Isn't age a different story when they start getting professional contracts at 16?
I think he was rated higher by FOTMob than Diaz last match.
That's one.
Really?
That doesn't really surprise me. Diaz
was shady,
but that was Diaz's worst of all of his performances.
I think that's why with Szoboszlai, I think it's kind of like a different scenario where it's a guy that almost went up too high, maybe too early, you know, being the captain of your national team and stuff like that. So you're kind of like almost used to everything. I don't want to put it like coming easy or something like that, but everything is rolling very smooth and going well. So maybe you did not face a more long-term adversity like that. And I think that's kind of affecting. I still have faith in the kid. I think, we've seen the potential and he will do well. How well will we do on Wednesday, Bickler? Give me your prediction for Wednesday's game.
3-0. Good guys. Yeah, 3-0.
I like it. Kind of game you can lean back. Yali, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the special. I think because of the rotation, maybe changing a few players at the back. We didn't even talk about, does Kwanzaa get back into the starting lineup maybe for this match? Does he start Bradley, give Trent a little rest knowing he's going to go off on international duty again? Like, I think there'll be more change at the back, and for that, I think maybe we concede one somewhere. But I think we'll get 3 and we'll win semi-comfortably. But 6 points from 6 after playing 2 Italian teams in the Champions League and this new crazy Super League, Swiss League format, to me, that would be an outstanding start.
I think so too. Especially the Milan away game, I think it looked, once again, like because of the control, it looked easier. I know we gave the goal up early, but that was a tough away game. When the schedule first came out, that's a game that I was like, that's a tough one, for example, kind of a deal going away to San Siro. But and I think it really works into the decision making when in terms of like lineup and how much rotation and stuff like that. I am going with the 3-0 as well. I'm kind of having a lot more faith in this defense just because of how much control we play in. But I understand what Gali is saying as well. The disconnects can sometimes cause like a mishap in the back, like the goalie not coming out or something. Something crazy like that can happen. Go ahead, Gali. You were about to say something.
No, I was going to ask you a question. Brian Shelton made a comment. Bradley maybe, Kwanzaa no. Like, at what point does Kwanzaa? You're the defender. At what point does Kwanzaa get another chance? He was given 45 minutes.
I don't see why Kwanzaa would be a no, to be honest. If anything, I would say Kwanzaa maybe Bradley no. If anything, I would think Kwanzaa gets a look, especially at home. He's good on the ball. We're going to probably dominate possession. I would think he would be the one to go tomorrow. Actually, that's part of the
Shelton thinks Shelton's thing is he thinks the rotation's happening versus Palace.
Oh, well, maybe. I just look at that and think to myself, if I got to play Bologna and sideline football calls it out right there. They lost Calafiore, they lost Xerxes, they've lost their biggest players. If I have to play Konate, I'd rather him against the Premier League strikers who know how to body and play big. And he's French, so he knows him. And you have Eze and these guys. Like, to me, I would be more apt to play Kwanzaa at home midweek to get his feet under himself and feel good rather than trying to trot him out against Palace on the road in a place like Selhurst Park where they want to step on your center back and they want to attack one of your defenders, and they sure as hell ain't going to attack Virgil. So to me, I would think you'd want your maybe most informed defender, barring the mistake last week, might be Konate. I think he would be the guy you want against Mateta and not worrying as much against the smaller, diminutive Italian side who's traveling in, who's probably coming here for a draw, let's be honest.
Yeah, here's the thing. If we had lost at San Siro, I get that thinking like we got to get 3 points at home against this team that's on paper needs 3 points. But with winning the first game away 3 points, if you're going to roll the dice on any game this week, it should be the midweek Champions League game against weaker opposition at home as opposed to going to Palace, which, we've had tough times going away to Palace in our best of days with Klopp and everything. So, if I'm rolling the dice, I'm definitely rolling the dice midweek. But I think we shall get the 3-0 win, and then hopefully with 6 points, head on to the international break, top of the league. That's the ideal case. So that when we talk about next Monday, we'll talk about all the international games with Bickler and how much he loves international soccer. That would be the entire episode back then. But until then, take care of yourself, and we'll see you. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Hopefully, top of the league.